Right, finally. So it's good to be back. So welcome to, I think, episode 21, I think it is. Now this has been coming for a long time, this video, but it just took a bit of time to put together. And first of all, to source the head. Second of all, to cut it up. And third, to balance all that with the work and the rest of my life. But here we are, episode 21. So this should need no introduction. It's the Cosworth DFV cylinder head. Some of you might recognize it, some others mightn't, but it's considered probably the most, I guess, famous Formula One engine ever designed or built. It's won a lot of races. It's won, over so many years. It's just uber famous, and to get my hands on this head was something very special. Now I've had, as you've seen in the other videos, I've had other heads of V10s, V8s, but this one has stood the test of time. Designed by Keith Duckworth in Cosworth. He was their main designer at the time. In I don't know what year, 60s, and it's still running in cars today. Now I've seen it at the Red Bull Ring last year. I was there with the V10 crew, the Toro Rossos, and there was a Lotus 48 or Lotus 78 there with it running in it, and to hear running, it was the first time I've ever heard a DFE running, and to get up close to it and all that. The mechanics were very good guys, and we had a good chat about it, and it's just an epic engine, that's all. So I'm not really going to get into years or sizes or that sort of stuff, horsepower. You can look all that up online. Again, never learn off something you can look up. So if you want to look up valve sizes, I won't be covering them. Displacement, horsepower, the different years, the cars it ran in, I won't be covering any of that. So feel free. There's plenty of information on the internet about it. You'll find it quite easily, and I'm just solely concentrating on the head, the design of the head, how it was cast, different features, and the internals, what they look like. Now, this head was developed alongside the FVA, which was an inline 4 16 valve. Now, if any of you guys have seen one of those engines, you'll notice a lot of similarities between this and the inline 4. It's pretty much, now a lot of people also don't realize about the Cosworth DFV. It's a V8 engine, but it's pretty much designed and treated as two separate engines. I would say the head here, this would be the what head is this? This is the output side. So this would be the right hand side head, gear lever on that side. So the driver side, if you want, if you're in Ireland or the UK. But it was treated as two separate engines in the fact that Keith played it fairly safe. He knew that the FVA ran fairly well. He had that developed, I think, just sometime before, like you're talking weeks or months before the DFE. They were done alongside, but he had results from the FVA, so he just kind of stuck with that. And as I said, the V8 is two separate engines. It's treated that way. And what I mean by that is it's got two separate oil pumps and water pumps. So if you look at a DFV, you've always seen the triangular cover on the front side of it. That cover down at the bottom, there was this would be let's say the top of the engine, the triangular cover. These were covering the drives for the two separate water pumps. There was one here, and the oil pump then was behind that. So the head, it was what I'd call play it safe in terms of design. He knew it worked. So one head got its own water pump. The other one got the other head on the other side got its own water pump, own oil pump. So it was pretty easy. Know that it was going to function. That it was going to cool correctly, it would be oiled correctly. Because he knew what was going on with the inline 4 previously. To dive into the head a small bit, a lot of people don't realize, even some of the people that handle these heads regularly, these heads were symmetrical in that just in terms of design time, like it was designed in a very short space of time. So a left-hand head is the same casting as a right-hand head, exactly. We'll cover that in a minute, but it just saved, doing a second set of drawings in the pattern shop. They could just cast all the one head. It did for left and right. Even if you look at the head, along its deck area here, everything is the same. These are the same. So they made one pattern for here. They had the technology back in the day to replicate, this part of the pattern just with resin casting. They take a mold off it. So all these core boxes and all the pattern parts were easy to replicate it. They were the same, now the one difference between this and the FVA was this was oiled centrally here. So the oil only flows up from the let's call it the deck area. It comes up here into the camshaft ladder or assembly. So that would be bolted on afterwards. Now the reason they did that was for number one, well, I guess number one or number two, but let's go to number one first. In terms of design, if you've ever laid out a cylinder head or tried to design one, you'll quickly notice that your valve angles here are, they're set. You pick your valve angles, you have to go with that. But what will happen is when you go to lay down your camshafts there, then over the valves to actuate them, the bolts will often be in the way of where you want your camshaft journal to be. So that's a big issue. Now, in the past, we've seen, like from my experience, if you look at the Volkswagen 16 valve engine in the Mark II GTI, or even in the Mark III, the ABF engine, you'll notice that the lower cam journals are really scalloped for the bolts. They go down to a knife edge here in the middle, so you can get your bolt down here. That's a kind of a modern way of doing it because they're mass produced, but in this case, this was treated as a separate part. Now that also has its positives because you can remove the camshaft, the whole camshaft assembly. If something goes wrong or if something wears, you can take off the camshaft assembly and leave the head on the car, because it was obviously bolted here, with the head bolts. So you can take all this off and swap on another one, or change it out, take it off to check it. You didn't have to start the head. Now, in terms of strength and all that, it's also very strong. As you know, this is a stress member. You can see the bridges here between the plug holes. The cam carriers went on here then, and the engine located onto the back of the tub with the tab off the cam cover. So it all had to be quite strong because it was a stress member. But nowadays, it's all done in one part, just because they can make more complex castings. Things have improved. There isn't as much, what would you call it, messing around in the pits, like lads stripping engines at the last minute to figure out something or to check something. They were just a lot easier to work on, an easier way of doing it. What else is there on the top side? So as I said, these are symmetrical heads. The head is the same this side as this side. You can swap it around and it'll fit. This is the famous magnesium end covers that people go on about sometimes. This weighs about the same as, I don't know what, 2 slices of toast. It's magnesium and it's really light. But you can see there the DA code here. That was Cosworth's internal code for the DFV engine program. So, and you can see the part number 91. Now in total, I think there was, I'm going to say 800 of these engines made. So that'd be 1600 heads. But like, this is an old head. I think they are, from speaking to Matthew Grant, they are reproducing these heads now. You can get them new, but this is an original. I'm not 100% sure what it was from. Possibly lived in a Lotus 78, but I'm not sure. I have to check the part numbers, but it is a vintage or antique head. It's a genuine item. So just to go over the cover, you can see the mag stamping there I think at the time they had to put a mag stamp on parts that were magnesium because of the fire risk, or when you were machining them, just that you know what you were doing. This is a fairly simple cover. There's a phosphor bronze bush pushed in there. It's not a sintered bush, it's just a solid material bush, not, you know, like the sintered bush can hold oil. This is just a solid part, but pressed in there into the casing, and you can see where it's machined back then, just so that oil could collect there and oil the gear which sat against it here, just for axial float, you know, to keep it oiled that way. So that will locate on like that there. Now there's also a standoff here, you can see it there, and a bolt would go in here then, just a socket cap, Allen head bolt. So that was to retain a bung here with an O-ring on it. So if I just turn this up here, so you can see this into the head here then, this would locate on here. Again, a lot of parts were similar. They shared a lot of parts just to keep spares down, part numbers down, ease of assembly. You know, the technician only had one part bin to go from. So this phosphor bronze bush here is the same as this one here. So they could just swap off. You could remove this, put it in here, and vice versa, and all that. So this cover, as I said, went on here like that. This would have a bung here, it's not on this cover, which would block this waterway here. So that would go on like that and locate, and you could assemble the rest of the head then. Obviously there would be one gear here on here, and driving the two camshaft gears then up from that. Now the quill gear featured, the famous quill gear featured down here. There was only one. I've covered that in the previous videos, which is the same design in the TJ engine and the CA, which would be the V10, the V8. Same purpose, just to take out the torsion vibrations from the valve train and from the crankshaft. But there was only one in the DFV engine, which had to be redesigned. The quill gear had to be designed after the engine was designed to get rid of that torsion vibration, which was braking camshafts. So Keith managed to design it and still fit it in here as a retro part, or a retrofit part, which was pretty cool. So that goes on there as mentioned. If I flip this side, now this head has all been cut, as you can see. This one has been machined down as well, so it's a bit thinner. Just put that up there, but you get the idea. So you can see both ends of the heads were the same, so they're identical, so you could swap them. Now this is where the water comes out into a swirl chamber here, and then goes off for cooling. So that was blanked, water came out this side, and if you had the head on the other side, the water would be coming out this one, and the other one would be blanked. You get the idea. So if I leave that down there again, and we'll just talk a minute about the water cooling, or how it was done. So the pump, as I said, the water pump was down on the V of the engine. One sat here, one sat here. Your engine then would be up like that. Water came up from the pump this side, right into the block, up through the block and into the head, and out of the head then, out this exit here. Now, this head, a lot of people, when they see this head, they think, now I honestly think that this was done as a carryover. Let's turn up some of them. So you can see these ports here. Now, in a lot of high performance engines, you'll see a manifold that came off these ports here and went off, you know, to your swirl chamber or swirl pot. But this wasn't the case in this engine. Now, I'm not 100% sure why these were done. Like, you could say that they were for carrying the gallery sand core in the mold, that they'd come out here like a core print, just to carry the sand core in the mold, so that you could sit it down on the mold and to keep it steady. But you could get the same feature, you know, from the exhaust port cores, or from either end. There was a lot of other places you could have hung that core. So I do think that these were brought over maybe from the FVA, or they were added there just for security, that they could put a a coolant manifold there, but they weren't used. Now that's just my thinking. They could be for core support, but they look a bit more intentional than that. But in the case of the DFV, they were just blanked with plugs, just with a little teardrop shaped thing there with an O-ring and an Allen bolt just secured them all. And these are all along the head between the exhaust ports. So if I flip it over this way, then you can see the same then on the intake side. So again, we've got ports here, probably for hanging the cores. Who knows? You know, there's nothing on these in the engine ones in the car. They're all blanked. The ones at the ends are threaded, and the ones in the middle are just blanked again. Now this one is cut in half, but the ones in the middle are just blanked with a teardrop blank and plug with an O-ring and an Allen bolt. Now, the other thing that you have to realize about this head, sand casting technology was, I won't say fairly new at the time, but for doing intricate castings like this, it was early enough days, you know. And the issue with the binders back then was, like, there was no problem doing the exterior molds, or the sand parts. They'd come off easily. But when you make the gallery or when you make the core for making the water galleries inside, the technology that time, the binders in the sand, it made it very hard to get the sand out of the head when it was cast. Nowadays, we've got very up-to-date chemical binders. You know, you can wash them out quite easily. But back then, they had to really make sure that all the sand was gone out of the galleries. So that was a job in itself. You know, you can see sometimes back, if you look at the video, I think there's a video on there of when the Cosworth turbo era started. But you can see a guy with a jackhammer breaking off the sand off the outside. So when the sand gets hot and it's not taken off immediately, it can really get a tight bond on the casting. So when you're casting a part like this, you want to get the sand off as quickly as possible, get all the cores flushed out as quickly as possible, because don't forget as well, when you pour a casting like this, it shrinks quite a bit. So when the material shrinks, it shrinks on that gallery casting and compacts it and makes it even harder to get out. So the sooner you can get it out of the casting when it's hot, the better, so that it's not really got a grip on it, you know. But to play it safe, you can see these, hopefully you can see them there in the camera. So there's one here, one here, one here, and one here, in the critical areas over the exhaust valves or the exhaust ports. Now they were put there so that they could completely flush out the sand in that area. Now these are, what will I call them? NPT, is that the tapered one? I can't remember. But they're a tapered grub screw that just goes in there and obviously blocks off the water. But their original purpose was, these would be all threaded. They'd be drilled, threaded, and then there'd be a high pressure lance put on here to flush out the sand from that critical area. It was also done here. This is why these are threaded. So you can see the end ones here are threaded. You could put on your high pressure hose here and, you know, put a lot of water in there to flush out the sand out of that area. Again, the spark plug access points were done. We'll get onto those in a moment. But that was why these were done. So you can see, actually that's a good one, yeah. You can see the cross section there. It's just right between the exhaust valve ports, right over there where it needs the most coolant. So they had to be sure the sand was gone out of there. So that's what that is. It's just a point to be able to flush out the sand. So that is why they did that. Now while we're here, and I have the right part in my hand because it's kind of confusing looking at them all, but so this is the thing we saw before in the Brian Hart V10 engine. Now again, technology has changed now, and you can have really fine detail in the sand, but doing it this way with a sleeve for the spark plug meant that they could machine right down here, machine a good counter bore, and have access again to flush out all the material here, the sand, and then put down this liner to keep the coolant in here, because don't forget there's coolant here, and if it leaked out here or around the plug, that'd be bad news. But it is put in with sealant. I don't know if you can see it there, and there's a slight seal ring there too, where the sealant goes, right there. You can see the step in the diameter just to gather the sealant there. But again, these were done so that you didn't have a big mass of material here. Like it's a hard area to make a pattern box for, because your core is very thin. If you wanted to have it come in around the spark plug here, they just didn't have the technology or the strength in the sand to make a really fine casting around the plug here. So it's a good way of doing it. Just put in a sleeve. And the main thing about it is it gives you access. Actually, I have one out here. That back in the right place. You'll be able to see on this one quite clear now. So that was the access they had when the sleeve isn't in it. So you can see there, you could scrape out all the sand, get right in there with picks, flush it all out, and you had a fairly, good idea that it was all gone. So that is that. Now, in terms of oil draining back to the sump, so when the engine is running, obviously this is at this angle like this, it's up like this. How will I show it? This way. So all your oil will collect here like this. Now obviously that's bad, because you don't want it sitting here in a big puddle, because it's going to fill up to this level and be over the valve stem seal. So you could have oil leakage there. There'd be a lot of pressure on that seal to keep the oil back, because there'd be a constant bath of oil there. So what the machinists were instructed to do was to drill holes down here, which exited there, so the oil could flow out of this here and down into here. Now, it's odd to me that they didn't also drill a hole here to let the oil out and flow down here. It'd be just passing the seal, it wouldn't gather there. But they didn't, because it was quite an amount of oil. If you imagine these filled with oil, it's quite a weight of oil in all these. Even if it is at a 45-degree angle, it's still a lot of oil. But I guess, Keith knew better than I can instruct or comment on the design. Possibly he wanted to keep some oil there just because to keep the thermals uniform, who knows. But the oil then flowed down over this edge and down into here and down into this little machined passageway, which is capped on the gear end. You can see it's all along there. It flowed all the way along here, all the way along, and then could drain out down into here, into the rear cover, and work its way down into sump. Now in terms of machining and all that, like obviously, as I said, this is a stress member. There's a very good fillet radius on this side here, which you can see. Again, this is blanked here, just with a blank. On this end, it's left open for the oil to drain down, and if you were swapping it the other way, you'd put the blank in this side and the other one would drain. Now just a point here about the oiling of the gear that sat here, which was on a needle bearing, and the needle bearing ran on this surface here. You can see in one of these pockets here, so the oil would drain in there. There's a tiny little hole there, which feeds into the middle of that there and exits there. So that's what oiled the needle bearing. So quite clever. By the way, this engine suffered catastrophic damage. That's why the valves are still in this part here. I tried to take them out, but they're just too bent. But as you can see, the carnage, it's fairly spectacular. It let go in style, as they do. So you can see the exhaust valve is still there, the head of it. So that's all pretty cool. So again, the water, as I said, would come up from the block in these holes here, It's not, you know, unusual to do that. There's generally two coming up here. They come up right underneath the exhaust ports, so that cools them first. The inlet, they're not really that bothered about cooling because even though it's all the same temperature, you want to keep it as cool as possible. But there's normally just one entry point on the inlet side of nearly all engines I've seen. So yeah, that's that. So what I might do is pause the video now because we're at 25 minutes and it'll just be easier to upload. I'll split all this out and we'll talk about the internals. So chat in a second. Right, so just before I turn it over and get into the insides of it, some of you are probably wondering why the valve stems are so long here, and I thought about it a lot and I figured it out. It's very apparent when you think about it, but because the camshafts go on in a separate assembly, if I just turn this way, you should be able to see why. Sorry to the headphone users. So if you try and put on, if your valve spring is going up here like that, by the way, this ran shims on the valves and buckets, just normal buckets. I think the maximum RPM was 10,500, so well below the limits of buckets, you know. But so if you had this coming up all the way to here, your valve spring up here, if the perch was higher, you couldn't actually put on the camshaft assembly because it would contact the spring. You know, it has to be fitted and then the bucket fitted. You just have an undercut interlock there, so that's why the stem is so long. It's a lot more mass, obviously. Like, to me, having seen modern Formula 1 engines, these valves are huge. They're 7 mil diameter, like they're gigantic. But they are what they are, you know. And again, it's a double spring setup just to split the resonance, or to keep, you know, to have one tuned to a particular resonance and the other one then will take over when that one starts to resonate, and they both keep each other in check. But you know, in terms of layout, it's not that unusual to any engine. So you have your keeper here. These are all steel, by the way. You can probably see with the rust. Your collets, they're a single groove keeper, which you can probably see on that broken valve there. But yeah, one thing with this casting I will say, obviously it was all done by hand, drawn by hand. The patterns were made by hand. They were done in Brazilian mahogany, and I can't remember the name of the company that did it, but the accuracy is phenomenal in terms of the raw casting and where all the datum points line up. You know, like, you can see that the bolt holes are exactly in the middle of where the casting features are, you know. There's no shift anywhere at all. Even on the ports inside, which I'll show you in a minute, there is zero shift. Everything is in exactly the right place in terms of like, when you're machining apart from a raw casting, the casting is relevant. All that's relevant is where you have to put all your features, and that they all can fit, and that there is metal there where you need your feature. Oftentimes you'll see heads going up for sale that they'd get halfway through the machining process, like Formula 1 stuff. I think there was a DFV block up there, Matthew Grant had up for sale, and they got halfway through the machining process, and I think it was the nearly the lad, the whatever penultimate machining op, and there just wasn't cast material there for where they needed their datum. I think it was on the end face here. You can see it's kind of skimmed here, but they just ran out of material. But in terms of this, it's absolutely bang on everywhere. Like, you can see yourself, just run over them again. That hole is right in the middle of the cast boss there. All these holes is perfect. If I just swap in a more modern V10 head, you'll see, like, this one was all done with the computer. I know computers, you know, rubbish in, rubbish out, but you can see what I'm talking about in terms of datums. and core shift. So if you look here, this hole, there's about 2.5 mil here, and there's maybe 6 mil here. So what I will call way out. Even on this boss here, you can see it's running thin here, and there's more material here. In terms of core shift, then on the port cores and the internal gallery waterway cores, again a huge difference. Like this is running very thin here, probably 2.5 mil, and you're up at 6.5 mil here. So yeah, extremely well done, this casting here for the day. On the top side, this one here isn't too bad, but yeah, it was just surprising, you know. Now obviously as the years went on, these walls are a lot thinner, you know. Obviously it's lighter, the material has improved, so you can do your features a lot thinner, but just something to note, you know. Technology always isn't or doesn't make things better. So let's delve inside this head here and see what's going on. So we leave that one aside, it's not that exciting. And we will take, let's go for this one. So again, this was all machined for this side here. You could swap them out. You could put in your shaft to carry the gear. Like this side, it was all done the same, so each head could be swapped. Now internally, you can see what I mean by core shift. Perfect. They're actually, you know, to 0.2 of a mil. The wall thicknesses, they're spot on. All these bosses here where the valve guides lie, perfect. It's actually amazing. Again, these bosses here for the head bolts and for coolant and for all these holes, everything is bang on. All done by hand with calculations. So that's pretty impressive. Now, in terms of cooling and all that, there's plenty of room around the ports, as you can see. Small bit of flash there, but I wouldn't mind that. They got the cooling right out between the exhaust ports. You can see there the coolant could go right around them and right underneath. On the roof then, you can see here again, bosses all exactly in the right place. So very clean casting. Port shape we'll talk about in a minute. You can see the exit there, the coolant will come out here and out the end. Now as I said, I machined this down. There's probably 5 mil gone off both of them, so you can see the hole isn't totally round there, so it would be like that. But again, that's kind of the top and bottom, what it looks like. So hopefully you can get all you want out of that. Exhaust port and your intake. So leave that there, and we'll take a different section. So this is the area in between both cylinders. So you've got a good support here. Again, don't forget it's a stress member, so good support here from the side of the combustion chamber up, and again coolant could flow around there. The exhaust port, it's pretty square, but I mean it'll work well for them, you know. If we flip it around this way, you can see again the detail. This is just rough sawn. You can see all the details there. Now you're probably wondering what that line is there. The coolant gallery sand core would have been made in two parts. Now this is hard to picture if you're not used to designing molds and sand cores, but it would have been made in two parts so you could get it out of the pattern box, and it would be glued together and then inserted into the main mold. So that's why there's a join there. So yeah, I think that's that part. Put it back in the right place. There. So this is where it gets more interesting now. So we can see a total cross section. Let's just see this side first. That's the same as the one I just showed you. So yeah, let's flip that. So again, wall thickness is very uniform. It's spot on, like, you know, everywhere. The exhaust port here, now don't let that shape fool you there, it's just the way it's cut. But you can see the shape of that exhaust port. Now it has been cleaned a bit. And again, of the intake port, the valve guide details. Obviously these grooves here are for where the stem seal would lock on. Nothing special there. But it's fairly steep, you know. I mean, this is straight all the way to the short side radius there, which is pretty minimal. You can see it there. Again, you know, you'd read so much about porting and all that crack, about dimples and, you know, making the throat area and blah 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 blah. What I've seen in F1 ports, they're all fairly straight all the way down, and, you know, they get to the seat as quick as possible. In terms of the seats, now I'm sorry I didn't co-horn these open just to show you the cross section, but the seats are nothing spectacular. That is the exhaust. It's a single cut with a very small radius, or a very small chamfer then at the top. The intake, there's two cuts on it. So that'll be one there, just where the light is shining, and then the other one at the top. Now the interesting thing about this seat is it's receded a small bit. So you can probably see the burr there, just on the outside edge here. It has receded a small bit, but not too much. So that's the seats. So let's keep going through the head. Put that back in the right place. Oh yeah, just to touch on this. This is the oil feed up to the camshaft assembly. So just a hole there and an o-ring here then, and it will locate on top of it. So that's that part. Let's take this one. Again, similar enough to the other side obviously, but this one hasn't been cleaned. I'll just show you the details here, just a different cut section. That's that part. Put it back again in the right place. Not that way. The area around the plug, again, a lot of material here, you know. This is where things have improved vastly over the years. They've cut down on the amount of aluminium above the combustion chamber, just you can cool it more. Like you wouldn't see anything like this now, but for the day it was pretty good, you know. Nowadays this would be coming right down here. Up here there'd be way more cooling around these areas. But it wasn't bad. This one, so you can see the valve guide there. This part actually is from there. Just as it was cut, it came off. That's that section. And that was the last section that was damaged. Again, like, there's a lot of that's the other thing too in modern heads. The capacity of the coolant in the cylinder head is a lot less, because it's high up in the engine and you want to reduce that as much as possible, just for roll. You know, it's very high up on the center of gravity of the car, so you want to keep the coolant volume as small as possible. Like, there's a huge amount of coolant, you know, needed to fill that, but they worked, and they work well. So that is that. You can see the number on it there actually. It's 0125. Just to give you an idea of the now again, there was a lot of finishing, hand finishing on these, a huge amount. So these were all hand ported, but beautiful ports. Not so beautiful here. Spectacular. So I think that kind of covers as much as I can cover what I have in hand here of the DFV cylinder head. Now I am selling all this head. There was a guy contacted me a long time ago. I must get back to him. He wants a section of it, so there'll be one part gone, but what I am going to do is slice them up a bit cleaner, just to display, you know, the interesting areas, say like that, and sandblast them, polish them, sandblast them, mount them in a frame, and I'm going to sell them. So they're going to be pretty cool. So I'll probably put a DFV engine line drawing in the background, just behind the mount of the part, and probably frame them. But I'll put them up on the Buy Me a Coffee link when I've them done, and whoever comes first, I'll probably get, I don't know, maybe 6 of them or something like that, just to recoup the cost of the cylinder head and keep the channel going. So that is that. Hopefully I've covered everything. If there's any questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you, and let's see where we go next. Take care.